Hello, good morning or good afternoon. Oh, can you hear me? Hmm. Wonder if I. Good morning.
Good morning.
Oh, I can hear you. Okay.
I always start off on mute because it was an issue once, and so you have to learn from your mistakes.
Awesome. I'll just give folks a few more minutes.
Oh, okay. Hi, May, can you hear me?
Hi, I couldn't hear you earlier, but you may have been on mute.
No, I was connected to this display, and sometimes the audio goes in the display, it messes
Oh,
up. Okay.
I was worried. But I can hear you both.
Okay, good. Morning, Ben.
Good morning, Manoj. Good morning, May.
Good morning.
Yeah, by the way, apologize in advance. I mean, I need to drop off in 30 minutes.
Okay.
Well, if it's just the three of us, we might be done by then. Before we can hope.
Yeah.
I know Paul said that he won't be able to make it because he had a conflict, but he was sending his colleague in his place. So we'll at least have one more person. And I do have a draft of the marketing plan to present to the team. And then once we are done with the call, I'll actually make sure that everyone has a link to the PDF. So as you look through it on your own time, if you have feedback or questions or things that you'd like to add in, we can kind of work that out offline.
And is there a certain mode of communication you'd like to have that feedback, or do you want it marked up and emailed back? Do you want it through Slack?
Um, whichever is easiest, I think. For me, I tend to note everything in email. So
Okay.
if there are questions or changes in email that you want to send, that's fine. But I'm also on the OPI Slack channel as well. So
Perfect.
you can ping me there too. And let me make sure that. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yep.
Okay, perfect.
Yes.
Okay, 7:05 my time. So we'll go ahead and get started. So since you both were on the initial call, I won't go through this because you already know me. But here is what I believe the end goal for marketing is. Establishing OPI as the standards-based open ecosystem for next-gen architectures and frameworks based on DPU and IPU technologies. What you'll see with this marketing plan is that now that I've joined the team as the resource, I think a lot of I think a lot of basic things need to happen. And so you'll see in this plan is we're going to build the foundation for marketing and communications first. And as we progress throughout the year and hit our momentum, that's when we'll start to expand and amplify and get a little more
May-
access.
Oh, sorry. I just saw you recording. Sorry. I just saw that. Go ahead.
Is
My mistake.
it okay that we're recording?
No, I want to make sure we're recording for everyone else.
Okay.
I just saw that. I apologize.
Okay, no, it's okay. Then we just see that Mark joined us. Hi, Mark.
Hello. Sorry for joining late, but I do plan to be here. So this is thanks for acknowledging my presence. I mean, I do have some ideas to share at some point. I'm not sure what the agenda was for today, but some news and ideas to share later.
Oh, good. Okay. We are going through the PR and the PR and marketing plan that I put together. But if it's just the four of us, we'll go fairly quickly. So you can share your news towards the end, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
Okay, awesome.
It might be appropriate, even part of this strategy here to bring it up. So I'll just keep
Okay.
following.
Okay, perfect. So in terms of PR and marketing, here are our four objectives. One, just establishing a marketing process. Two, developing project identity and brand. Three, building consistent communication across multiple channels. And four, establishing thought leadership and increasing project awareness. So how are we going to achieve these objectives? So the first thing, establishing a marketing process, which is basically the foundation. So creating an editorial and events calendar so that we're all working from the same timeline. Things that have, tech-related milestones, seasonal milestones, like March is Women's History Month. Are there any women that we can highlight from our group? Things like events, as we prepare for the SmartNICS Summit, making sure that we are starting to promote that 6, 7, 8 weeks ahead of time, things like that. Developing a strong social media strategy for Twitter, LinkedIn, and YouTube. So these were the 3 social media handles that I believe this team started last year. And so I don't know that we are consistently posting. And so our job moving forward will be to consistently provide content that engages with our members, potential members, media and analysts, developers, vendors, all sorts of targets, and retweeting their news and sharing our own, as well as building a library of assets. So this is what we've kind of already started with the PowerPoint template that Ben and Manoj started going through. I think it was on Friday, working with the LF marketing team to get graphics, stuff like that. Oh, I see there's a question.
Oh, no, you were asking for women on this project. And so one Red Hatter, Chris, is kind of our key person on the Red Hat side pushing this forward. So
Okay.
that's her name and her email. If you want to reach out, I can also help do an intro if you want to highlight her at all.
Awesome. That would be great.
I'll see if I can find any more, but now she's the key person on our side.
Okay, perfect. And then the other part of laying this foundation down is the project identity. So creating the brand and style guide, which the LF marketing team is currently helping us with, making sure that we create a set of key messaging that anyone from the marketing team or the TSC or the governing board, any members can take and they can share with whoever they're talking to. You know, it's an elevator speech. It's the basis of a presentation that they're giving at an industry conference. It's the messaging that folks would use at a show where they're speaking to people one-on-one at a booth. And then again, refreshing the website, which we did get an update from Sridhar yesterday during the governing board meeting. The TSC team did unanimously vote to migrate the website from Hugo to WordPress. And then yesterday, the governing board approved the budget. So it looks like we are all set to start working on a new website. Just super exciting. Any questions here? Just excitement from Ben about the website.
Yeah, excited about all this so far. So yeah,
Yeah, this is
going.
awesome. This is what we need, right? We need to get those assets, those marketing assets, made available to the various members of the consortium, making it easier for them to integrate in their presentations. You know, even if it's not specifically on OPI, but having a couple slides from OPI, I think that'll benefit us quite a bit.
Yes, absolutely. And we'll be united as a front, right? We'll all have the same messaging, we'll have the same tools, we'll have the same presentation. And so it'll be one voice, you know, sharing the same message. And the second half of the plan is a little bit more about communication. So making sure that we're building consistent communication across multiple channels. So really, once we have this blog or this website up, you know, one of the biggest tools we'll have is the blog. And so how are we going to leverage it? Well, we're going to use it, you know, a few times a month to highlight contributors, to highlight news, to highlight milestones. And then as we are using the blog, we're also going to use the social media strategy to amplify everything that we're doing on the blog and feature those members and contributors who are giving us assets and sharing our messaging. We'll also work with the TSC to develop use cases that show solutions, deployment, and adoptions. I think this is key as well, because this shows that it's working. You know, OPI will have use cases, case studies, we'll have things that real examples that we can show to, you know, potential members and media and analysts so that they have a better idea of what we're doing and where we're going in the next few years. So once we have, you know, consistent communication, the other part of that is then establishing this team as thought leaders and increasing project awareness. So, you know, what we talked about last week, creating a white paper that showcases OPI's thought leadership, giving an overview about the project and how folks can get involved, promoting speaking engagements by project members and contributors, not only at, you know, big conferences, but, you know, podcasts. Where are our members and contributors speaking? You know, what interviews are they giving? We're going to promote those speaking engagements as it relates to OPI. We're going to secure media coverage and target publications, and hopefully as those come in, we'll also be amplifying those on all our social channels as well. And lastly, raising awareness for key OPI events, such as our big event, the SmartNIC Summit in June. And so making sure that we have a plan going in. I know, I think someone said it was a half day a half day session for us. And so making sure that we have a strong plan going in, and then making sure that we have touch bases for folks, you know, before the conference, during the conference, and after the conference. What are the actions afterward? And so making sure that we are highlighting key leadership there. Questions on this one?
I've got specific questions about upcoming events, but I think we can go through this plan and then go through it. Like for the SmartNIC Summit, I've got some questions on that one.
Okay. So
Why don't you finish up? I had a couple more things I wanted to throw out, but I want
Sure.
to see everything.
Sure, go ahead.
Oh, okay. So one question, and I'm bringing this up, and I feel like I'm bringing it up in a vacuum with not as many people on the call, but
Mhm.
I was curious what your thoughts or how you saw this deviating from maybe like doing like webinars, and I'm not saying they have to be live, but either like a webinar or like a pre-recorded kind of webinar session that could just be posted on like a YouTube channel or some other types of content. Video content's very engaging. People like to see it. Gives us a good opportunity to showcase demonstrations. We're talking hardware. I don't know. People love seeing hardware, what it actually looks like, even if it's just a bunch of, you know, chips or something on a board. It makes it feel more real. So I was curious about that. And then I had one other question. And the other questions, I'll call it a trap, but I mean it nicely. So I kind of talked about, I used a phrase, marketing chain. Some folks in OPI, not this audience, but some other folks, governing board and other folks may not be very familiar with kind of like how marketing works. And so, you know, I'm looking at this and I'm trying to be a little critical, and I'm looking at like, you have a lot of great stuff, right? But what I think non-marketing folks may not appreciate is this is not a shotgun approach of a bunch of one-off efforts. You'll take something like, I'll pick on a white paper, right? You take the white paper. It's not taking a white paper, putting it through a process, and then publishing it, right? You're going to take that white paper and pull out a blog, and you're going to have 10 ideas for different tweets and 3, you know, Twitter polls, and you're going to have other ideas as you're going through this. And so I was using the word marketing chain because you're going to like do stuff before that, you're going to do stuff after that. It's not that you have to do everything, but it's kind of like they're optional things, but you're going to do a lot of promotion. And then so if there's a webinar or a speaking event, there's more types of things that you'll do to get people to the event, and then you'll talk about things after the event. And I think people kind of need to understand that this is not just kind of a whole bunch of one-off items. A lot of these things are kind of intertwined, and that's what makes it more impactful. So like I said, it's a little bit of a trap. I'd love it if, even if it's a really simple idea, there's like a little chevron chain kind of slide, maybe as backup or something, to just give a very simple example to say, you know, you'll do something like an asset, a content piece, and you'll do stuff beforehand and you do stuff afterwards. And this is kind of how we kind of help keep the conversation alive.
Yes. No, I agree 100%. I think marketing is probably one of those things where everyone says they understand what it is, but really, what is it? And so,
Yeah, and part of it is telling people, I'm not trying to say it's justifying what you're doing. I think people, they need to understand how this stuff is interconnected. So they, you know, people in the TSC and the governing board understand it's not just a white paper, right? It's keeping the conversation alive. And the importance is to have some regularity in these blogs or content pieces or stuff that's coming out, so we can keep this conversation alive, because as the conversation's alive, it's easier for us to get, you know, call for paper slots, and it's easier for us to attract attention so we get more people contributing. Like all of our goals seem to get met as we keep this conversation elevated.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good point. You know, I think that once we receive maybe approval on this, you know, that's as easy as me creating a slide where we showcase like, okay, now we work on the white paper, and then once the white paper is final, here's what we're going to do with it. You know, it's promoting it on social, it's sharing it with media and analysts, it's breaking key points out and creating a social graphic that members can share on social. It's 2 different blogs. It's, you know, a quick video on YouTube that explains, you know, gives a 5-minute version of the white paper. Yeah, that's something easy to do. Mm-hmm. Any other thoughts here?
I think Mark is waiting for measurements.
Yeah.
Well, I think at the end of this, what we could do too is add some examples, right? And maybe show some ideas of what specifically we're talking about. Because we've got the white paper, that's a good one, right? You can already put in here an example of how you see that chaining to blogs and to events, and you know, build out our plans for this year.
Oh, I did have a question now that you mentioned that, Mark. So Ben, you talked about webinars. Has this group had a webinar yet?
I
Not
mean,
not since I've been joining.
yeah, I don't know of any. It's been very CFP response focused from what
Okay.
I've seen. But I'm thinking, why rely upon other events if we can kind of do some of our own content? And I think we're trying to I see the organization kind of literally maturing, you know, quarter by quarter, you know, in ways. And I'm like, I think this is one of those things. Maybe we don't do it next month, but maybe we should be doing it later in the year.
Well, if we have a white paper, you know, part of the
Exactly.
yeah, part of the promotion of the white paper could be a webinar.
Now you know my traps.
Yeah. And I only ask because webinars, people right now are having the love-hate relationship with them.
Yeah.
You know, it's something easy we could do, you know, once we have a presentation and once we have the content and the speaker for. However, you know, if you're interested in getting registrations, I've seen, you know, folks hesitate to register just because I think with everything that happened with the pandemic, there's just a just a fatigue, you know, for registration. And I only say registration because, you know, even for folks who aren't registering for the actual webinar, by the time we put the video up on YouTube draws in a lot of replays. And so
Yeah.
even though folks aren't, you know, attending live or registering where they would get the webinar immediately afterwards, they are going and watching it when they have time, you know, as they can, you know, during their schedule. So we're saying replays on YouTube a lot more than registration. And so if this group hasn't had an actual webinar yet, you know, it is something that we could definitely try. But I don't think, you know, we should be measured on like how many folks register, because I'm just seeing it across the board, not just, you know,
No, I think it's
not
net
just
new.
the projects that I manage, but, you know, across the board for LF, it's down. And they have been down, but the replays have been phenomenal.
Yeah, I think webinar is best when there's like a panel and you want to have some interaction. That's kind of what I've seen. And then the rest is
Yeah.
just good YouTube fodder. So this is a question out of ignorance, but also a question for you, May.
Mhm.
Do we have we collected any emails? Like people who are interested in learning more about OPI or being informed about OPI? Because if not, my question is, do you think that we should be doing that? Whether it's a future newsletter or, you know, just reaching out to people with updates every so often as OPI evolves.
Yes. So I do think that in my initial download with Paul and Sridhar, I do think that they said they have lists of interest of folks that are interested in the group. So somewhere there is a list being kept. Can we do more? The answer is yes, and the website's going to help us do that. There's things on the website that we can add. It just in terms of, you know, having folks either fill out their information for, you know, to get on an announcement list, where we could, you know, put anything from new press releases that announce new members or new, you know, assets like the white paper or webinar, you know, stuff like that. And then, or even having folks sign up for a newsletter too. So I will take the note to ask Sridhar like more about that list, because I'm not sure who manages it. Or where it is, but the new website will definitely help us reach out to more folks and get more folks involved.
Super.
Awesome. And so in terms of measurements, so these are the ways we'll be measuring our results. I did not add in specific numbers yet, just because we have to take an inventory of where we are now. You know, so how many followers do we have on Twitter right now? How many do we have on LinkedIn? You know, what is the website traffic currently on Hugo? Stuff like that. So once we have kind of what our base is, then we'll be able to then add in the numbers of, you know, how many media placement do we think that we can you know, obtain this year? How many speaking engagements will we secure and promote? How are we going to analyze our success at the SmartNIC Summit? Because I believe we won't get a list for that. We just have, I think we just have the colo. So how are we going to make sure that that is a success? So that's stuff that we'll be working on behind the scenes to get that basis, and then to update this slide with the correct numbers. Oh, with the four of us, this went pretty quickly. I was not expecting to go so fast. What are your questions or your feedback?
I think this is awesome, by the way. I think this is what we need to do. I'm interested. I feel like for me personally, the goal I have set out for myself is to align ARM's marketing, messaging strategy, anything that relates to networking that pulls in our engagement in OPI.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not just ARM, but all the partners that are a part of this group.
Mm-hmm.
I have stuff to share on our plan already that I'd like to go over with this group, and also consider stitching some of these activities into this plan, just to give you some of those proof points.
Awesome. That sounds great. And there are things that aren't in this list that we can, a lot of tools from the LF side that we can kind of tap into. You know, LF has a monthly newsletter that, you know, once we have blogs and once we have the white paper ready, you know, it's something that we can include in the LF newsletter that will for sure get us more eyes on our white paper, right? We can tap into LF networking and their newsletters and some of their email campaigns. Luckily, I work well with those folks, with those PR and marketing folks. And so, you know, we could always pull in some of that stuff, especially as they are promoting, you know, One Summit and doing things like that. We can always leverage their activities too. And so there is a lot more that we can do and we can amplify. I see those as being like the bonus, the cherry on top of what this plan is. This plan is at its basics, you know, it's us doing the foundation, making sure that we're strong and that we've got one voice, one message, you know, so that we can hit that home hard. It's way too early in the morning for that, but sorry. But so we can hit that out of the park. And then once we start doing that together, I think as a team, you know, we'll start to see the momentum. And then as we get that momentum, more things will come. And so that's, you know, partly what excites me, is though this looks basic, once we have it where we want it, it goes fast. And then, you know, the speaking engagements, you know, we'll start securing and promoting speaking engagements. We'll have media interviews, we'll have coverage, we'll have blogs, you know, we'll have so much. And I think that, you know, and then tying in the Linux Foundation and LF networking will just make it even better.
Yeah, that's a great point. I was going to actually ask that question, but you preemptively answered it. So maybe for this group, we can look at upcoming Linux Foundation events and see if we can, you know, maybe leverage some of those events for, you know, getting like a, you know, like a panel at the event, or even around the event, you know, like a getting on the newsletter, their newsletter with a update from OPI, or, you know, things like that. Yeah, we can identify a few that are kind of relevant to OPI, right? Particularly the networking event, maybe even KubeCon, Cloud Native Con, and
If I can share my screen, I got that on my on my list as well, and we can go through some of these points if you don't mind.
Yeah.
excellent.
So,
Yeah, and I apologize, I need to drop, but I'll follow up with you, Mark, and others. Yeah, and
yeah,
then,
we've discussed these before, Manoj. So I think we're aligned on some of this stuff.
Yes.
I think putting a plan and making it formal is what I'm looking for here.
Excellent. Yeah, thanks. And sorry, I need to drop.
thank you for coming.
Thank you.
All right, you should be able to see my screen. So I guess this is for the three of us now. So event list, yeah, that's something we need to do, I think, and I can start that list because I've got a nice list for the marketing, for the networking team at ARM that I put together, and I imagine there's like 100% overlap between the two of them.
Okay.
Upcoming announcements. So I already see a couple that we should consider because they're just around the corner. One is, yeah, ARM is joining OPI. That's going to come out soon. I'm still working through the paperwork, but I'm expecting that by the end of March, we can start that announcement. So I'm definitely going to be publishing a blog that's going to sit on the ARM website to announce that, you know, that announce that ARM is joining as a premier member.
Okay.
I will draft that and share that with the team here because I think, like, my goal with this is not only to promote ARM, but to promote the project, right? So I want to call out reasons why we're joining and the value that this brings to the community. So I can help create that. And if there's anything supplemental that we want to add, then maybe there's a message that we can deliver from OPI, the group itself, right? Like a welcoming message or something.
Yeah, and we can, I'm sorry, I don't know this, but who is the governing board chair?
The governing board member will be me, and I will also join the outreach.
Okay,
And then we have a TSC member as well, or a team, but there'll be one person assigned as a lead from ARM as well. That's
but
kind
are
of
you Mark, are you the chair for the governing board?
Oh, sorry, not the chair for the governing board, no. Who is the chair for the governing board now? That's Joe,
Don't
right?
know.
I'm sorry, it was who? I mean, I could,
Yeah, I'm not sure who that is. Governing
Okay.
board chair for the OPI. I'm not sure.
okay.
Might be Chris. Let me ask.
Okay,
You're thinking,
because we could definitely, you know, as part of the communication, we could definitely have a quote from the governing board chair welcoming ARM to the project, and then, you know, sharing a little bit about the project.
sounds good to me.
And that's something that I would work on with the chair.
Okay, so that's coming. And again, because of engagements we have coming up, I'm really pushing hard for this to be closed by the end of March. I think I'm about 3 days away from the contract being signed, and then
Okay.
everything else is just paperwork. So we can align with blogs for, say, the end of March.
Okay. And is there a specific event coming up in April? Is that why you're pushing so hard for March?
Yes, there is. So I'll get to that in my next slides here. I've got them all listed. It's the one that we're kind of engaging on.
Okay.
The other announcement is going to be around the lab, right? This is coming together. So I think very, very soon, we're going to be able to say we have a lab up and running.
Yes, that's correct. The governing board talked about it yesterday, and they've got all of the budget stuff in place. And so it was just a matter of getting it. Well, no, they took the vote too. And so they voted, I think it was ones all across the board. So I think we are ready to move forward with that.
Yeah, so that's the location, right? The location is picked. Now we need to purchase equipment and populate the lab. So I think we're maybe, not too long from now. I think that's the next, another milestone to track.
Yep.
Okay. Those are kind of the events that popped up in my mind while we were chatting today that are coming up. The other thing is events. So ARM will be speaking at OCP Summit in Prague on April 19th. That's coming up. This is the speaking engagement that forces the announcement, because we're locking down the presentations for this now.
Okay.
And what I wanted to do is just share with you the blurb that's going to talk about OCP DPUs. So what we're going to talk about, and I'm sharing this, and I know it's recorded, and I think this is fine. This will be our presentation for the event. We're going to talk about, let me see if I can zoom this in. There we go. We're going to talk about this architectural change that's happening in data centers. We're seeing it play out in the cloud, but we expect this to happen in data centers as well. And that's what's driving the need for DPUs. So we have a view on this, and this is what we present here, how the infrastructure is changing and how DPUs are coming in and playing a key role to advance what is not happening with Moore's Law anymore. So NICs are coming in, they're offering specialized offload capabilities integrated into your server and part of your architecture. And we go through a little bit more detail on this and some of the roles. And then we call out OPI specifically. So these are just more slides on what's happening in the industry, where ARM is engaged for OSS projects. And then, so this is at OCP, and OCP is I think a great environment that kind of aligns with DPUs, in the way to see it is that in OPI, we're going to enable DPUs that are going to extend the projects in OCP to
Mhm,
leverage that technology. So
mhm.
we're not reinventing the wheel with anything we're doing in OPI. Instead, we're providing a path to use DPUs in these projects. And these were the intersections that were highlighted by Joe when I mentioned that we were going to do a talk at this event.
Mhm.
So when we talk about this slide, we're going to invite, right, the members of the OCP to join forces and, you know, bring these workloads, bring these ideas to the OPI project and look for areas where we can work together.
Mhm.
That's kind of the messaging, you know, overall on this, and you'll see it repeated in the final slide. We go into more details on what is OPI, and that's it for those slides.
Mhm.
And like I said at the end, we're going to ask them as a call to action to join us in the OPI project to align OCP initiatives with the standard and open community focused on accelerating adoption of DPUs, and then our logo. So an example of how we can intersect or integrate ourselves into presentations by the members of our community so
Mhm.
that we can get a little bit more visibility in OPI. And this is where I think the standard messaging comes in.
Yep.
What are the key points we want to highlight? How do we do that in a way that is, you know, encompassing the entire organization, making it look stronger together?
Mhm.
And again, I can share these slides with you, maybe the specific ones, or we can, you know, I can share this even after the event.
Okay. Mark, the only thing I would ask is that instead of using OPI, I would spell out our name. Since we're still so new, folks won't know what OPI is.
Got
And
it.
so the more we can say open programmable, the better.
Got it. Okay, I will deconstruct that for sure.
Thank you.
All right, let me go back to my previous presentation. So this is the first engagement that we've signed up for where we call out OPI. And again, I'm hoping that we're going to be a member by the time this goes out, because we're, you know, we're bold in our statement that we're joining.
Mhm.
So hopefully that all works out. So we're going to build on OCP as a key environment for ARM anyways, right? Like ARM is going to be doing more with OCP going forward. And I want to make sure that we pull in the work that we're doing in OPI and show that alignment. So I'm really going to be looking for projects in the OCP that are looking to take advantage of DPUs and try to make those alignments.
Okay.
And the reason for that is, you know, or maybe another reason is that we're going to be a sponsor of Global Summit in San Jose that's coming up in October. And what I'd like to do is align with OPI to the point where we have either an OPI booth there, or we have a demonstration on ARM's booth from OPI that showcases the advantages of DPUs in a data center and really calling out the proof points. Basically taking a server, running a specific workload, and then replicating that with a DPU offload and showing power consumption, CPU utilization, obviously calling out the advantages of DPUs. And then these variables are what OPI enables: the ability to swap out DPU cards, the ability to run applications, and how that's constructed. I think we can do this with a great display. If we plan early enough, we should be able to have something, you know, I'm hoping by the fall, to have a demonstration, or we can do a workshop, right, at that same event, and do an interactive walkthrough of what's in place already in the OPI framework.
Mhm.
So my thought here is, I know we're not ready for any of this. The thought is to consider how we would bring this up to the TSC as a challenge. You know, if this is something we decide that we want to do from an outreach perspective, and then start aligning the members towards building this type of display, with the thought in mind that we have an avenue, right? We can do this at OCP, and if it doesn't work out there, we'll find another event. But we should have something like this that really calls out the advantages and the work we're doing within OPI.
So Mark, I love this. I'd actually advocate for both, but I would say if we did get the workshop, I think we could scale down the display to be a little bit more of a simplified, like 3 slide rotation or something, where there's like, pictures of the basic architecture, and then there's like a summary slide that's more, a summary marketing slide of like, here's the benefits and here's why you do it, like, something. And maybe it's 10 slides, but and the other thing that I would like to see, which is more of a May thing, is I would love to see some like vinyls printed up. So we go to an event like this, if let's say we have 3 Premier members and 5 non-Premier members, like we should have like, I don't know, would be appropriate, but a pretty meaty, visible, 1 foot, 8 inch, whatever, vinyl, something that says like Premier Member OPI or something, where literally it's not like wrecking like the ARM booth, but we could just kind of, Mark can go and talk to his event person and kind of like put it up there and take it down, so they can add it to the booth as necessary for whatever the event is. Because I think that would just be great, because which begs the other question is, would we have an OPI booth, which is really a question for the general outreach meeting and maybe the governing board meeting to get funding. But if we had an OPI booth, then we can direct people when they ask about OPI or what is this thing to the booth. If not, then we need to try to think about, from an OPI perspective, who might be the larger companies, friendly companies that would have a large enough booth where we could kind of nudge ourselves into a corner to talk specifically about OPI. So that would be something where I'd go, hey Mark, you got a big enough booth, can would you allow some non-ARM folks here to talk solely about OPI in general and help support that mission? And then Mark would say, let me think about it and talk to other folks.
So that's kind of where I'm at, right, Ben? I've already got that approval.
Mark,
that's kind of what I'm putting on the table for OCP.
Yeah.
Right. So, that's kind of what I again, it's now up to us as OPI team to decide, if we want to make this a do this or not. So I agree with you, right? This display can easily be done with a static display. I really feel like what is becoming more compelling is live. Like I heard from MWC that some of the great, and these are like static demos, but they're interactive. The ones that were really compelling had power consumption displayed, because that seems to be a metric that is now front and center, in a lot of these discussions. And of course, it's measured in different ways. You can either have higher CPU utilization, or doing more with the server, or you're saving power. But having that front and center in a semi-static display is what I envision, as a really eye-catching display. But still, I agree with you, right? Still static, I think, would be a lot easier to manage. But I wonder if there's a way to make that semi-static, so you've basically just got the meter running and you can talk through what's happening there, or somebody at a glance can see the 30% improvement in power consumption. Like, to me, that's like an eye catcher, what the message we want to deliver is clearly much deeper than that from an OPI perspective. We want to talk about the ecosystem, the interoperability between different DPUs, the framework we're building to make this consumable. And this is where, we kind of drill into more details on it.
Yeah. So admittedly selfishly, there is a Red Hat project that is focused on delving deep into actual hardware, electric usage, environmental impact and all that. And they can get pretty detailed. I'm wondering if it is something that might be a fit. It wouldn't be the nice like hardware meter, because some people might only trust a hardware meter. But if it's something that would be fine on, let's say, a dashboard with some various statistics, I'd be happy to look into that if you think that would be reasonably appropriate.
I think I know the team you're referring to. I met with
Kepler.
Kepler. So I met with some of your speakers at a previous event. In fact, it was a Linux open infrastructure event, I believe. One of the challenges they brought up to me was the inability to get into the weeds of the CPU, especially with ARM processors. Getting a clear understanding of the impact of workloads at that granular level. But I agree with you. I think it would be ideal if it was more of a software-based display, just easier to manage, right?
Yeah.
The obvious brute force way, and what I remember from my engineering days, is you put a meter in line, right, with the server, and you say, here, 750 watts versus 550, doing the same thing. There's no, no smoke and mirrors here. Pull the plug and the meter goes down to zero, right? But I agree. That's logistically, that's a huge challenge to set up. It might be a lot easier to do it down that path. In fact, it would be cool to get that project involved in this group, right? For that reason, like how do we get the metrics that we want around power consumption when we consider DPUs?
I can ask, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's what I had, coming up. So we talked about the regional stuff. That's easy. It's a quick, a couple slides, and it'd be great to get it called out on our site, on the OPI website. I'm not sure, or how do we alert folks how do we get visibility to this talk if we see that it adds value to OPI?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a question for me.
Yes.
If we get everything approved, then it's okay. What do we have on our mailing list? How can we start attracting Twitter users, and how can we, advertise it over time through our social channels?
Yeah, and it would be definitely something that we would add to the website, and something that we would promote. But will we have a website by April?
No, but we could do a landing page. We could do, maybe Mark could author, or somebody else could maybe author a blog that would be a little bit of a teaser blog to kind of, restate maybe OPI's mission and say a few things, and, whether we want to say that ARM is joining, or we want to say, there's some fun excitements, come to this session to learn, the latest announcement.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'd love to pull in Joe in that discussion, because again, my thought here is we don't want to reinvent the wheel when it comes to the use cases. We want to pick up what the industry is doing today in CPUs and provide a path to DPUs. And I think OCP has a whole bunch of cool projects, that would benefit from the tie-in with our organization. And I know Joe sees it. So I think it would be great to, if we do write a blog, to mention that alignment. I don't mind drafting that. I can draft a blog on this, and we can figure out, circle it around and see, how we.
And then that could be something, since we don't technically have an OPI website ready, that could be something that we add to the Linux Foundation website or linux.com. And then we promote it that way and kind of leverage. I mean, clearly they have a lot more eyes than our website would yet.
Should it be an OCP?
Perfect.
Should it be
Leverage.
an OCP blog?
I'm sorry?
Should it be a blog on OCP?
It could be a blog about OCP, but with heavily OPI messaging. Is
Okay.
where we'll get that tie-in. Mhm.
Like OCP, that's completely independent from Linux Foundation, right?
Mhm.
Okay, so there's no alignment there. So yeah, so I think, yeah, I agree. I think the messaging, like I said, is educating the OCP projects that there's a path to a more efficient architecture that you should be aware of. Come see us for alignment. And I kind of highlight what we're going to focus on. And look for areas of intersection.
Mhm.
Okay, why don't I'm happy to take on this action since I've had to come up with the strategy at ARM on how to position it. I will extend that into a blog, and then I can pass it over to you, May, and then
Okay,
circulate it within, and we can get some messaging out.
perfect.
SmartNIC Summit, I think we need to talk about this one soon because I know we have our half-day session we're going to plan, but are we going to also do a OPI session at the event itself, at the SmartNIC, sessions? It feels to me like the half-day session might not attract the same audience that we'll see at the SmartNIC.
Yeah, that's a good question. Is it Paul that is leading this?
Yeah, Paul's doing this part.
So we'll follow up with him.
I think we should have like a slide deck, a preparation slide deck on SmartNIC, and talk about everything and how capture the talks that are going to be submitted by members. Like there's folks from ARM that are part of the committee that's voting on all of this. So I can definitely put a feeler out for some of these talks get accepted and help promote that.
Okay, that sounds good.
And then again, OCP Global Summit San Jose, October 19th. To me, this is one where if we believe and we see alignment OCP, like there's an opportunity here, to present, workshop, either on ARM booth or OPI booth if we decide to go down that path. And I've already got this cleared. We can do something there. I just need to know it early enough, right? Because we're planning this already. I need to know that we, what we would do, what we think we can accomplish, and then we've got a place to land it.
Uh-huh. Okay.
Yeah, that's pretty much all I had. So as you can see, like I'm in, right? Let's like, if we got anything going on the outreach side, I'll be supporting and be a part of it. I'm happy to join and speak where it makes sense. I would say most of my activity right now, short term, is kind of locked and loaded, but I'm already planning for the fall, right? So this is kind of where my head's at now, is what are we doing for the fall? What do we want to commit to? What's achievable?
Mm-hmm. And does OPI participate in LF conferences, like the open source summit or embedded open source summit in Prague in June?
Not yet. I don't think there's been any activity at Linux Foundation events. I'm going to be at the infrastructure summit. I think that's in Vancouver the same week as the SmartNIC summit. So I'm double booked for that one, but that's another event that is hosted by the Linux Foundation. That would be a great avenue to talk about OPI. So if I end up getting pulled away from the SmartNIC Summit to be at that conference, then I will submit a talk for OPI and basically, take advantage of the fact that I'm there, right? And deliver maybe a similar talk that we've got planned for the SmartNIC Summit at that event.
Okay. Okay. So we are out of time. But this was a really good, this was a good meeting. I know there wasn't many of us, but it was productive. So
Quality
for next,
versus quantity.
so for next steps, I will send out the marketing plan to the team and just let folks who weren't in attendance look it over and provide their feedback and their questions. And then while folks are reviewing that, I'll also meet with Paul to talk through the SmartNICs Summit and kind of what our plans are there, and then start putting together numbers for our measurement goals, and so that we have a base. And so once everyone approves this marketing plan, we've got a base of where we're at now, and then we can start on some of these activities, starting to put together the key messages, making sure that everyone is aligned in what we create there, and then the website. The website is going to be a beast, because we'll have to analyze the content that's currently on there, figure out what we want, if any of that content, what we want to migrate over to the WordPress. We'll have to figure out colors and styles and themes. So we'll have to get started on that pretty quickly as well.
Exciting. So
Good.
in the meantime, I'd like to kick off the events calendar. So I'll take that action item to create, just a calendar for the year, and that'll give us some visibility. We can start working on that. I'm not sure what we do at OCP Summit in the fall, so I don't know if we want to start, how we want to progress that forward. And
I would say let's do SmartNIC and try to figure out get that going. And then we can kind of do the lessons learned of, okay, that worked well, that didn't work well. And then once we have SmartNIC kind of like under control, I think we can start slow rolling what we want to do for the fall.
Yeah, the problem is I might not have enough time after SmartNIC Summit to have
the pivot. Yeah.
No, I'm not saying we have to wait till after SmartNIC. We can start as soon as we have a plan for SmartNIC. We can start the high level plan and start moving it forward.
Okay. So maybe in April. So I'll see if I can give myself till, say, the end of April to lock down what we can do at OCP if we do anything.
I think that would be working. That would work.
Okay.
And Mark, I took the action to send you the Excel spreadsheet that we currently have. We do have a list of events, and so it might just be something you have to manipulate and then add your events to. But I'm happy to share it with you.
Yeah, that's good. I think what will end up happening is you'll have a spreadsheet with all the events, and then we can create a slide that kind of highlights the key ones that we're targeting.
That's perfect.
And then that gets populated based on which ones are getting, hits, which ones we're going to get speaking slots at, and then that'll create a nice map for this year. And it could even be like a history. That's also very valuable when we look into, say, 2024 to see where all the speaking engagements were.
Yeah, I'd love to see that list too, if you could share that.
Sure.
Okay.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a great one.
Okay, you too.
Yeah, thanks everyone. Bye for now.
Bye.